We give the people what they want.
A lot going on today. Lamar Jackson is back. Dez Bryant was not allowed to play. Michigan has forfeited their game against Ohio State, and Doug Peterson is trying to assassinate a Jalen. We will get into all of that, but we start with this. Two pieces of news regarding James Harden. Number one, he will show up in Houston. Look at that. Number two, he decided that he doesn't just want to go to the Nets. He's willing to go to the Sixers or another contending team. Jalen, what do you think about a potential deal from the Sixers that involves Ben Simmons and maybe some draft picks or another piece for James Harden?
James Harden wants to get out of the West because the West is tough and it's getting more stacked by the day. In particular, it's by the Lakers, who've distinguished themselves as the clear-cut favorite to win it next year. If I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I understand Daryl Morey wanted to acquire James Harden. There's a level of familiarity there. Same with the Nets and Mike D'Antoni being on the bench. There's a level of familiarity there. And why does that matter? Because they were around when James Harden had his career seasons, Jacoby. Daryl Morey was the one that brought him from OKC. Mike D'Antoni was the one that put the ball in his hands. And before you know it, he became a player to put up historic numbers. The most unique player that the game has seen, because he's the only player at some point of his career that's going to lead the league in total assists, total free throws made, as well as total three-pointers made. The only guy that's going to have that happen at some point of his career. However, right now, if I'm just looking at assets and I'm the Houston Rockets and I could get Ben Simmons for James Harden, listen to me, Jacoby. If I'm the Houston Rockets, I do trade James Harden for Ben Simmons.
And if I'm the 76ers, I trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. I think this is actually a good match. This seems like one that works for both sides. If you're the Houston Rockets, what do? We got a new coach. We got a new GM. We got a new point guard. We actually have some people that play center. We're changing everything. Let's get out with the old and in with the new and bring in Ben Simmons. If you're trading James Harden, who scores more points than everybody else in the league, who is an MVP candidate, who is a scoring leader, if you're trading him, you want something back. But you don't want to trade him for a bunch of pieces like Brooklyn's going to offer. You want a young superstar. This seems to be the only young superstar that maybe could work. I think this makes sense for both sides. I'm not just saying I would do it. I think it's going to get done. What do you think?
I echo what you just said. It's going to get done, and I like it for both teams. Here's what I like about it for Philly. You now have a marquee player that whether Joel Embiid misses 10 or 15 regular season games or not, that has proven to you that he can catapult the team to a top 3 or 4 status in the Eastern Conference because you saw him do it in the West. And then you hope he and Embiid are healthy come playoff time to do damage against some of the other top duos that have taken place in the Western Conference. If you're Houston, you do it for all the reasons you just said, and I'll add a couple of more. When you're trying to rebuild, if you could get all-stars in John Wall and Ben Simmons, that's one thing. But they both have multiple years left on their contracts. That's the key thing. And you sign a Christian Woods that has a couple of years. You invest in a DeMarcus Cousins that, based on his productivity, his productivity is going to be vastly more than his salary. So now all of a sudden, like you just said, you reinvented yourself. And the Houston Rockets would be a playoff team in the Western Conference.
Playoff, yeah. They'd be in the middle of the pack. They'd be right in the middle of the pack. I put them between like 4 and 6.
Teams. But again, here's why also that familiarity is important to James Harden. Daryl Morey had a sense of power with Morey, and that's what a great player like James should have. He had his ear, and he was there every time they made a deal. Mike D'Antoni, 7 seconds or less, he allowed James Harden to shoot double-figure three-pointers in the game. Each of those guys have a fatal flaw. Ben Simmons doesn't shoot outside of the paint. Harden doesn't really defend. And Embiid can't really stay healthy. So this is where you see like all NBA caliber players, not necessarily that superstar level player, which is why I like this deal for both teams and what each can get accomplished if they make this happen.
And one of the reasons I like this deal is there's so many duos in the NBA. And what do I like? I like complementary duos. John Wall and James Harden aren't necessarily a complementary duo. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, we've seen it year after year after year. But if you trade those two, Wall and Simmons make a lot more sense than Wall and Harden. And listen, Harden and Embiid, while not a perfect match, make a lot more sense than Simmons and Embiid. I think this is a good deal. And if I am Raphael Stone and Daryl Morey calls, he can't even say the word Joel on me before I hang up. Because this is not an Embiid for Harden type of thing. I want Simmons and a piece or nothing. I think the deal gets done. Remember where you heard it first, Jalen and Jacoby. Moving on to the game last night, the Tuesday night game in the NFL, and it was the return of Lamar Jackson. Obviously, the Ravens won, but what did you see from Lamar's performance that you liked?
Lamar's one of those players when I watch him play, Jacoby, and he eludes defenders. Like Deion Sanders as a kick returner and a punt returner gave me this. He looks sweet out there. You know what I mean? He got the ball in one hand. He's switching to the other hand. He out there spinning. He hit the line of scrimmage like a young O.J. Simpson, and he's gone. Like, he's looking left, he's looking right. He had 3 total touchdowns. It was good to see him returning from COVID and being a productive player. Now, for the Ravens, their character and identity is running the football on offense, but physicality on defense. That's what's going to have to improve if they're going to catapult themselves back into contention status in the AFC.
It just felt like every time the Ravens ran on this defense, they guaranteed 5 yards. They didn't really need to do much through the air. But what I saw from Lamar, while everyone's celebrating him today, I can't celebrate him today. Because I watched the game last night, and you look at the stats, he was 12 for 17, only 5 incompletions. But he did not look good throwing the ball. He had some really bad throws, and there were a lot of throws that were scheduled to be throws that he dropped back and didn't really like what he saw and then ended up running. Like, this was not a triumphant return of an MVP. This was someone who looked a little rusty throwing the ball. It's all right there on the screen for you. So if you just look at the box score, you say, Lamar's back, everything's all good. But watching the game itself, Lamar's back, but everything is not all good.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying about his passes. He hit Hollywood for a touchdown, but he's playing without a security blanket. He's playing without a security blanket, Andrews. He's normally out there over the middle for him to hit as well. So I agree with you. The passing game must improve for Lamar. But again, the physicality that they need to play at all 3 levels defensively is who the Ravens are at their core. They got to get a lot better if they're going to play against the great teams in the AFC like Pittsburgh and KFC in advance.
Only in 20.
KC. I said KFC. Oh, boy.
I'm black and I'm proud. Mario Lopez. Mario Lopez got you. Mario Lopez
I'm black and I'm proud. I said KFC.
Well, while COVID pushed this game to Tuesday, COVID did impact this game as well. We all wanted to see Dez Bryant suited up in the all black for the Ravens against his old team, and he was out there during warmups, got tapped on the shoulder. Had an inconclusive test before. That test turned out positive, and he did not play in the game. Now they've got devices on themselves and phone. They did some contact tracing and decided that only Dez Bryant needed to miss this game. Jalen, what do you think about the ruling from the NFL that only Dez Bryant should miss this game?
I blame the NFL because you need to make sure that each player has tested, exited protocol before you allow them to put on uniforms and get on the field. If that's the case, they should have officials at every game. By the way, how many games were played last night? Only one. Only one. They could have had some officials at the game. We've seen over the last couple of weeks the Ravens have multiple positive tests, players in and out of the lineup, players that missed last night's game. You would have thought as a league, almost similar to what I see with the concussion protocol, they're just not as direct as they need to be as it relates to instituting these rules that they say are important, but yet you allow Dez to get out on the field, shake hands and kiss babies, and then you pull him off the field when you realize that his test was something that allowed him not to be on the field.
I felt so bad for him. Obviously, he felt well physically, but we all know this is a virus that can often impact people without impacting them with symptoms. I feel bad for him. And he said he was going to drink wine and cope, but there was nothing more 2020 than drinking wine and coping. We've all been there. Well, Jalen, something happened in the NFL that is really bothering me. Doug Peterson's trying to assassinate a Jalen. Doug Peterson has announced that Jalen Hurts is going to be the starter for the Eagles. I don't think this is a good idea. And I know there are so many ex-football players and so many analysts I listen to that say Jalen Hurts gives them a better chance to win. I think this is a terrible idea. And let me tell you why. They're not just playing anybody. They're playing arguably the best defense in the NFL. Rookie quarterback with 1 week to prepare. Didn't look great last week, to be honest with you. The Saints are third in the NFL with sacks. Second fewest rushing yards against them. Second in opponent's completion percentage. Third in the NFL with picks. Jalen, what do you expect to happen on Sunday? We have a show on Monday. Do you think we're going to show up on Monday and say, oh, look at Jalen Hurts, 4 touchdowns, ran for 100 yards, shredded the Saints defense, future superstar? We know that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is he's going to get sacked, he's going to get beat up, he's going to get tricked by the defense, he's going to throw a couple picks, and he's probably going to get pulled for Carson Wentz at some point in this game. I think this is a terrible idea by the Eagles. Convince me I'm wrong, Jalen. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Never underestimate the power of a Jalen, Jacoby. As a matter of fact, you saw Hurts and Rieger in the end zone make that connection this past weekend. Here's what's really happening. Doug Peterson alluded to it a couple of weeks ago. He said out of his mouth, if I put Hurts in the game, that's basically signaling that we're giving up on the season. Why are they doing that? Because the Giants and the Washington football team have actually distinguished themselves as the favorites to win their conference, their division. So since you're Philadelphia, you put Hurts out there and you say, okay, GM, you took him in the second round. Okay, ownership, you took him in the second round. Go right ahead. But here's also what you do as an organization, Jacoby. You stop Wentz from getting injured. You allow yourself to get a look at Hurts, but you keep Wentz from getting injured because he has a big number next year.
Jalen, this is, I mean, if you're stopping Wentz from getting injured, you know what you're inferring right there? That you're going to get Hurts hurt. Like, I hate the idea of a rookie quarterback making his first start against the best defense in the NFL that sacks the quarterback, pressures the quarterback, fools the quarterback, forces interceptions, doesn't let you run the ball either, so you can't rely on that. Like, I'm genuinely concerned for him, and not just the impact this game will have on him physically, but mentally. I promise you, on Monday, we're going to talk about this game, and it's not going to be pretty for Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts throws 3 touchdowns and runs for 1 and beats the Saints, I'll do 50 push-ups in a row on the show. It's never going to happen. You know it ain't going to happen.
I got a question for you. Who has more passing yards, Taysom Hill or Jalen Hurts?
Say it again, please.
Your over-under bet. Here's your prop bet, everybody out there. Who has more passing yards, Taysom Hill or Jalen Hurts this weekend?
Taysom Hill. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be so ugly. You know what? I'm calling out sick on Monday. I don't want to talk about Jalen Hurts' performance on Monday. I'm calling out sick. Get whoever you need to get to replace me. It's not Jalen and Jacoby on Monday. It's going to be Jalen and somebody else because I'm so concerned about this. I think this is a very bad idea. And I think, like you mentioned, it's a spiteful move from Doug Peterson, and he should be ashamed. I really think Carson Wentz is the best thing to do. The best thing to do is to start Carson Wentz against the Saints. We will be back. There's so much more to